cold hand of winter prevents many creatures from being active. Animals like the turtle must move underground to hibernate. Others, like the fox and falcon, grow warm winter coats and tough it out. A good many species of birds migrate south to warmer climates. Some of these birds find their way to the wetlands of South Florida, one of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the United States. The warm, humid climate mixed with the nutrient-rich water causes many plants to grow. The lush vegetation provides food and shelter for a wide variety of creatures. From the vast expanse of the Everglades to the haunting cypress swamps, and even in some man-made areas, wild animals thrive, and there are hundreds of fascinating species to explore. Join me as we go take a look at some of the many species that call Florida home. A large flock of white ibis take up residence in a pond apple tree, which serves as refuge from predators. Every morning they awake, warm up, and head out to forage. The ibis is a gregarious bird, meaning that they live in flocks. Every morning, they awake, preen their feathers, then bask in the morning sun. Once they're ready to go, they fly off to forage. Ibis are adorned with a long, curved bill, which is specialized for catching prey in shallow waters. In order to hunt, they sway their bill from side to side, probing for any creatures. They will also forage on land, oftentimes in people's front lawns. White ibis feed on small fish, crustaceans, frogs, insects, and sometimes even snakes. This white ibis feeds alongside his more homely cousin, the glossy ibis. The glossy ibis is similar in appearance, however it has a much farther range. During the summer months, they will migrate north to Delaware, New Jersey, and sometimes even as far north as Maine. A small rabbit is feeding on grass at the water's edge. At first glance, this looks just like the eastern cottontail, a fairly common species in this state. However, this is the marsh rabbit, one of the most unique rabbits in all of America. This species is perfectly at home in the wetlands. Most rabbits can swim in order to escape predators, but none will regularly take to the water like the marsh rabbit. One of the easiest ways to tell the marsh rabbit apart from their cousin the eastern cottontail are the smaller ears and darker fur. Like all of his kin, the marsh rabbit has many enemies in the wetlands and must always be on constant alert. While they may be shyer than their cottontail cousins, the marsh rabbit is still fairly common in the state of Florida and can be seen in many wetlands. With the sun halfway over the horizon, a brown speckled bird starts to clean its feathers. This is the limpkin. They are closely related to cranes. The limpkin isn't often seen in mixed flocks. Often they forage alone, or in small groups of other limpkins. This bird's bill is specialized for preying on snails. They hold snails upside down until the creature decides to come out, and then they use the curved tip of their bill to grab hold of the snail, pulling it out of its protective shell and swallowing it whole. Limpkin are fairly common in South Florida and can be found wherever there is shallow water with a healthy supply of snails, particularly apple snails. One of the most common birds down here is the moorhen. Oftentimes confused for ducks, moorhen are in a family of birds known as rail. The moorhen is also sometimes referred to as a gallinule. These strange-looking birds feed on aquatic vegetation as well as the invertebrates that live amongst them. These birds are extremely adaptable, being found in the deep Florida wilderness, as well as many urban areas. The moorhen is a monogamous species, and the male and female mate for life. Many bird species are monogamous, since staying with the same mate for life makes it much easier to build nests and raise chicks. Due to the warm climate, Florida is the perfect habitat for invasive species. Perhaps one of the most common of them is the green iguana. Green iguanas originate from South and Central America and have found their way to Florida from the pet trade. The green iguana is an expert climber and swimmer, which helps them escape from many predators. One interesting thing to note is that iguanas have a third eye at the top of their head. It looks like a pale scale, and it can't discern between shapes and colors. However, it can sense light and movement. This bird goes by many names, such as snakebird, darter, water turkey, and their official name, the anhinga. The name originated from a Brazilian tribe that translates to devil bird. While swimming in the water, only their head is visible, which may have frightened the natives. Today, the anhinga is a much more accepted bird, seen rather as an essential member of the ecosystem. The anhinga is one of the most common water birds in the southern states, being found from North Carolina to Oklahoma. Florida is one of the best states to find anhingas since there's tons of anhinga habitat, from swamps to shallow lakes to ponds to estuaries, and even man-made canals and ditches. Anywhere where there is clean, fresh water and a healthy population of fish, there will most likely be an anhinga. Their diet is almost entirely made up of fish. However, there is one problem. They have the feathers of a land bird. Unlike their cousins the cormorant, anhingas do not have waterproof feathers and must dry themselves out after every underwater expedition. If they stay in the water too long, their feathers will become waterlogged and the bird will drown. In the water, these birds are fairly fast, using their webbed feet as propellers and their turkey-like tail feathers as a rudder. This anhinga has found itself a group of minnows. When one is caught, the fish is thrown up into the air and swallowed with ease. While there are no mountains here, the Everglades and backwaters of this state can only be described as wilderness. The Florida swamps are one of the few places on Earth where a reptile is still the dominant predator. The alligator is like the grizzly bear of this ecosystem, serving as the symbol of untamable wilderness. Alligators thrive wherever there is fresh water. Once endangered, the alligator has made a massive comeback due to conservation efforts. Here, the alligator is king, not only because it is the apex predator, but because it also protects the swamp and all of its creatures from the elements. Unlike New Jersey, Florida only has 2 seasons, a wet season and a dry season. During the dry season, little rain falls, and creatures are forced into smaller areas. Alligators save many species from the drought by creating something known as a gator hole. This hole fills with water, providing the alligator with a cool spot for the dry season. Alligator holes also provide food, shelter, and hydration for countless other species here in Florida. Alligators feed on just about anything they can find, from fish to deer. As hatchlings, they feed on insects under the watchful eye of their mother. At this age, they are vulnerable and could become a meal to many predators. If they survive, they could grow to legendary sizes. The largest alligator on record in Florida grew to be 17 feet long. Florida is home to the only species of stork that breeds in America. The wood stork is hardly a beautiful bird with its large bill and bald head. However, it is still a fascinating member of the Florida wilderness. Wood storks feed on fish, crabs, insects, and frogs. During my visit to Florida, I saw many of them in roadside ditches, feeding in the water. If the alligator is the king of the Florida wetlands, then the spoonbill is the crown jewel. Its majestic pink feathers are a result of the bird's diet. The crustaceans they consume have pigments known as carotenoids, which turn the bird's feathers pink. They feed in a similar way to the ibis, by swaying their head back and forth, feeling for prey. One interesting thing I learned is that the spoonbill deals with hair loss, or in this case, feather loss. As the bird gets older, it starts to lose the feathers at the top of its head, balding. The spoonbill is now perched on a tree branch, watching the sun set and getting some rest before the next day, where he will go back out and forage for more food. Florida is perhaps our most biodiverse state, with hundreds of unique species. I hope to visit this state again to discover some of the wild treasures here. My trip to Florida wasn't long. In fact, it was barely even a week. However, in that short time, I was able to get all this footage of these incredible creatures. And there are many more that I have yet to find. If you ever find yourself in the Sunshine State, be sure to take a closer look around. You may be surprised at what you'll find. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, check out my feature-length film, The Hidden Wilderness, a movie all about New Jersey wildlife.